Hello back, this is Darwish. As we discussed in the previous video about what we will cover through this module, okay, I will start now with Introduction to SharePoint 2013 Workflow. Okay, through the first one, Introduction to SharePoint 2013 Workflow, I will talk about history of workflow in SharePoint and the new workflow architecture in SharePoint 2013 and what's improvement, and as we will discuss, it totally different from all previous SharePoint versions, and we're gonna learn and know new glossary of terms to SharePoint workflow. Let's start briefly about history of workflow in SharePoint, starting from SharePoint 2003. It was no workflow in the box, so they was mainly relying on third-party solutions, and I think it was so expensive. And once Microsoft released SharePoint 2007, they introduced Workflow Foundation, which was introduced in .NET Framework 3, and it hosted by Workflow Foundation runtime. And when SharePoint 2010 released, it came with the same core architecture as 2007. But here, they added update to site workflow. This was really so interesting, and also there was so interesting point for the business analyst because they added more support for modeling workflow over Visio 2010. So the business analyst can do modeling with customer offline, of course, over Microsoft Visio 2010, and once he finished modeling his workflow, he can import it to SharePoint Designer 2010, and he can develop his workflow. It was so nice feature. Let's take a look at new workflow architecture in SharePoint 2013. After you install SharePoint 2013 and configure it, you will find Workflow 2010. That means that old workflow will be supported in SharePoint 2013. And if you develop new workflow, it will not have any benefits of new workflow architecture because it runs at the old engine of SharePoint 2010. That means it will be high available. Also, they couple the workflow as a service from SharePoint. That means that workflow will be the same whatever in SharePoint on premises or Office 365. It requires SharePoint Server 2013 for user profile applications, which it isn't involved in SharePoint Foundation. So if you are working with only SharePoint 2013 Foundation only, you will not be able to work with new model of SharePoint 2013. Workflow has taken very different approach in SharePoint 2013 from previous SharePoint versions. As you know, the workflow team worked with Azure team to develop new Workflow Manager 1.0. It mainly acts as a host for the workflow and host all scalable service inside workflow. To talk more about SharePoint Workflow Manager, I'm going to be more in depth. I will start with the installation and the configuration. The entire product independent are installed on server independent than SharePoint 2013. The best practice to use, I will recommend, as Microsoft recommend, web platform installer from Microsoft. If you go to the Google Chrome and just type Workflow Manager web platform installer, will get with you the first link, installing workflow through web platform installer. Okay, this is msdn.microsoft.com. You will come here, you can install Workflow Manager by click this link, and after you finish it will first of all show for you this screen. It will load all prerequisite. You will just press I accept. Okay, and then you go press continue, and after it finished it will show you that indication that installation and the configuration have been completed successfully. Okay, it's a very easy piece of cake.